Good evening, this is the Art Scene. I'm your host, Lila Snow. Tonight, I have a new backdrop. It's my work called The Love Game, and it's made from boxes that used to hold physics instruments. There are new summer shows at American University. I haven't seen them. The Funshan wooden tunnel continues, and that's called Escape. There's also Val Luton, who has been around for a long time, and I hope to get to that show. On to Fences. This deserves to be commented on, even though it's old Academy Award news. I think Denzel Washington would have had the Best Actor and maybe the Best Film, but it was a little too long. This is August Wilson, who wrote plays about the African American community in Pittsburgh. And he touches all bases. There's jail, there's drinking, there's the military, and it's the role of women and the role of men. Denzel Washington works collecting trash. And this is an interesting thing too, because he gets promoted to drive the truck. And he's never had a license. He learns how to drive, he gets a license, and then he finds that life in the cab is lonely, and he misses the camaraderie of his fellow trash collector. So it's just so well done and so intense. It was supposed to get more awards than it did. So on to About Ellie. I don't think anyone has heard of this. It went by swiftly under the radar. It's an Iranian film, and it's so well done, and it's so incisive about the role of men and women and the whole culture in the Muslim world. Ellie is a teacher, and she's invited to go to a seaside weekend with a family. She's the teacher of one of the daughters, and so she goes along, and she's invited because an uncle has come back from a divorce in Germany, and this is supposed to cheer him up. But she's a single woman, he's now a single man, so there are ramifications. But the most striking thing is the women are in charge of the children, and so the children are in the water. I've seen at the beaches Muslim families. The men are out swimming. The women have to be completely covered, so they're at the shore with the children, but the children want to get into deeper water in order to swim. But the women are limited because their robes get soaking wet, and that's really an interesting thing where the father could easily take the child out further, but he doesn't. Anyway, a tide comes in, and a 2-year-old boy disappears, and his 5-year-old sister is frantic, and I don't know where the women are, but she runs to find her father. This is a moment in the film when she says, "Papa!" and she points at the water, and he says, in a minute, he's playing volleyball until he suddenly realizes that he better pay attention, well after the whole audience is screaming at him. So it's a very interesting distribution of who does what in that world. Manchester by the Sea. This got the Best Actor award for Casey Affleck's Casey Affleck is the younger brother of Ben Affleck. The main story is so tragic, and I won't tell you about it. Affleck is a plumber in Boston, He takes out the trash, he shovels the snow, he does everything for this building. And then he hadn't been told, but his brother had put him down for custody of the 16-year-old son, Patrick. And the brother dies, and so he goes to Manchester by the Sea to pick up Patrick. Well, Patrick has other ideas because he has 2 girlfriends. He plays in a band and he plays hockey, and he wants to stay in Manchester. Also, the photography in Manchester, the boats, the sky, the birds, is really phenomenal. But the main thing is dealing with the tragedy that the uncle has lived through. So that's very well done. On to being Canadian. This is marvelous because I have relatives in Canada, and it's like you try to understand the Canadian attitude towards their place in the world. Why are they always explaining everything in terms of America? Their Gemini is like America's Emmy Award. Everything is like something in America, and America is the world leader, and maybe they don't realize that it's not always so good to be the world leader. So there are 7 billion people on the planet. The USA has 319, Canada has 35 million. So this tells you a lot about the difference. So the film starts out in Nova Scotia. He drives across the country trying to understand what being Canadian is about. And it finishes up on July 1st, Canada Day, which is their July 4th in Vancouver. And then he realizes that maybe being #1 is not so marvelous. Also, Jewish comedians evolved because they felt like outsiders commenting on a world that they weren't part of. And I think that seems to be true for Canadians. There are many wonderful Canadian comedians, Samantha Bee and Stephen Colbert. So it's an interesting look at Canadians. They're very polite and they're trying to understand their role with their important neighbors. Loving is such a timely film. The couple is actually called Mr. and Mrs. Loving. They're a biracial couple. It's taken until 2016 to make a film about this. It's from 1967, and it takes 9 years to get to the Supreme Court. And they're arrested in Virginia because it's illegal. He's sentenced to something like 20 years. She's pregnant when she's incarcerated. And so the ACLU was delighted to take it to the Supreme Court. The couple isn't so sure they want to go through this, especially the man. He's the white person who's a construction worker, a man of few words, but she decides that they should do this for the sake of future couples. Well, this raises the whole thing about the recent scrutiny to find the 9th justice because they asked about being an originalist. An originalist thinks that you should stay with the founding fathers' concept of the Constitution. The trouble is this law was from slavery days, so it's not always such a good idea to stay with the original Constitution. Jeff Nichols is the writer and the director, and this is quite a film and quite an important documentary. So I discovered Curtis Sittenfeld with her first book, Prep, which is about prep school. This is her 4th book, Eligible. And what it is, it's a hoot. It's a spoof about Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. So it's interesting to see how that story has changed, because in Jane Austen, once you're 20, you're almost unmanageable, marriageable. And here in Eligible, the oldest sister of 5 is 40, and then comes a 38-year-old. And Mrs. Bennet is a shopaholic. There's a transgender couple, there's a gay woman, there's a gym, and there's a reality show. So the 2 men, Darcy and Chip, are doctors, which thrills Mrs. Bennet. This takes place in Cincinnati. And one of them is on the reality show Eligible, screening bachelors. And so it's the modern day version of Austen, and it's so interesting to see the way things have changed from Pride and Prejudice. I took a quick look at First Sight by Nicholas Sparks, and this was annoying because it's a New Yorker who you're supposed to feel sorry for because he was tricked into going to live with country bumpkins in North Carolina. They even wear plaid shirts. Oh my goodness, you feel so sorry for him. And I say tricked because it's not clear that he's the father of the baby that his girlfriend is expecting, but he's thrilled because his first marriage ended because he was told he couldn't have children. So he follows her to North Carolina, and you're supposed to be so annoyed with the people who aren't like New Yorkers that before they leave, they go to FOA Schwartz, and they're annoyed with babies crying, so maybe fatherhood isn't the greatest. So anyway, I'm going to go on next time with Snowden and some other films and books. See you next time on The Art Scene. This is Lila.